I'm just sitting here eating my post-workout meal, and I'm thinking of things while I'm training. My mind's always thinking of different stuff with training, and John and I discuss a lot of things almost every day about what training is and what the literature says and what we're going to apply in this off season. And the things that go through my mind when I'm training and doing sets are, I'm not trying to do the exercise. And I think a lot of people are trying to be like, this is how the exercise is supposed to be performed and executed off of a demonstration I've seen or somebody has taught me. But it's not doing the exercise, if that makes sense. It's training. You have to train your tissue. So it might not look like it's supposed to look per the form. And it also goes along with the range of motion, which I'll touch on next. So it's like, it's like when you're doing a bicep curl, I've posted videos about this before. It's not like letting it come all the way out and letting it come up. It's finding stuff, rotating and contracting and squeezing through the motion to get your bicep to contract. And it might look a lot different from person to person, depending, their limb length and all these other factors and their mobility and stuff. Like, you got to figure out how to actually train that tissue that you're training. And then the other thing is the range of motion, which I think I've touched on it before, but we'll talk about it again for anybody that hasn't seen it. It's when somebody says you need to do full range of motion, well, you have to find your range of motion and what you possess. And even like when I'm doing cars and stuff too for my shoulder, I have to consciously think, now this is where my range of motion actually is. I'm not trying to go outside of that. I'm trying to stay within my own area, which I own. And I'm not going to try to go outside of things that I don't have. Like, I'm trying to stay within my little circle as I'm going back and I'm coming up and coming forward. So like, for example, for chest press, when you're doing it, you're contracting up, your scapula is pinched and you're chugging down, and you're breaking the bar, you're squeezing your hands, you're driving force, you're putting force through the bar, and you're squeezing, and then you're taking it down, and you're thinking, like, as it's stretching and lengthening, you're thinking, okay, this is where I feel this big stretch, but now when I come too far, now it's off. So now you have to constantly think on that next rep, when I get to here, it's still on the tissue, but once I go here, it's off. So you need to come down and keep that tension on that muscle and then drive force and put through. Now, we all know the force velocity curve. The more force you have, the less velocity you have. The more velocity you have, the less force you have. So you don't want to beat it through, beat repetitions with speed. It's not, this goes back to my first point. We're training tissue. We're not doing exercise. We're not trying to get better at the exercise. If you're getting better at the exercise, you're weightlifting, okay? You're not bodybuilding at this point. And us as bodybuilders, we want to train tissue to hypertrophy the tissue to get it bigger, okay? So it's not like you have to go in there and constantly go up in weight each week, right? Because now we have the law of accommodation that comes into play, because you can only do a certain exercise for a certain amount of time and push the progressive overload before accommodation comes in, and then you actually start to get worse at the exercise. I saw Zach Merkel post something a month or so ago about, well, sometimes, you get weaker on the exercise, but that's okay. Just keep driving through it. And I sent him a message. I said, well, the law of accommodation is what you're saying, and you can't just keep pushing through exercise. He didn't respond, which is fine. I mean, but this isn't my opinion. This is what it is. So back to the force velocity curve. And so like we talked about, the more force that you have, the less velocity that you have, the more velocity, the less force. Now, when we're talking bodybuilding, we want to stimulate all the tissue that we can. So if you are blowing through repetitions with speed, just to do the exercise, you're missing out on a lot of tissue that you're supposed to be training, right? So you need to figure out how to contract through repetitions and not just lift weights. I think I see it in the gym all the time, and back in Ohio, people doing this speed curl stuff like this. I see people with dumbbells doing this. I don't know what that is, but that's not high. It's not going to build muscle mass. I don't know who come up with that, but it's all about putting force in through a muscle, contracting, time under tension, all these things, creating new space to be able to train more things. When I did the podcast with Dre and John, there was one thing I wanted to touch on, but I forgot to touch on it. But it was like, when you're doing pails and rails and cars and these things for your hips and your shoulders, your scapula, whatever you're doing, right? So if you're doing these things, if you're doing pails and rails, the pails and rails help you get more range of motion, and then the cars are to stabilize what you have. So if you're creating more space in your joints and it's giving you access to more things when you're training, each week when you go into the gym, you don't have to go heavier. This isn't my opinion. It's what it is, okay? So that you can't argue with this. So say you do flat barbell press, okay? And you get 8 reps or whatever. And then you're doing a bunch of shoulder work, and you're creating, you're opening up more stuff in there. So now you have access. So next week when you come back, you can technically do 225 again, okay? Because now you're hitting more things. You don't have to go up to 230 or 235 on the flat bench, okay? You can keep the same weight because now it's a different exercise, okay? There's no debate. Because now you're training new tissue that you didn't have access to the week before, okay? So this is why it's so important for you guys to do these things on a weekly basis. Like, I talk about it all the time. No one listens, not no one, but some people listen to me. We've got members on the website that are, hopefully they're doing the programming that we put on there, and my clients are hopefully doing the training that I'm prescribing them to do. But a lot of people would argue with me about what this stuff is. And like I said before in my video last week, I said, I feel like Magatu from the one movie where he's like, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. Because this is how Mike Menser felt. Mike Menser's talking about all this stuff, back in the day. And people were like, this guy's crazy with his training methods. But this is what it is. So my off season, what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish this week with 5 days a week of training, low intensity, high volume. Next week, I'm going to do the same thing, low intensity, high volume. And what I mean by that is, my friend was asking me about that. He's like, what do you mean intensity? Like, I work out hard, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, well, if you're doing high volume, okay, you can't have high intensity. Like, you can't have both. It's one or the other, okay? This isn't my opinion. It's what it is. If you have high intensity, you have to do low volume. Think about if you are going to sprint as fast as you can, okay? How long can you hold that top speed for? Just a few seconds, okay? So that would be considered high intensity because you can only maintain a high intensity for a small amount of time. Just like in weights, if you are training maximal high intensity, you can only do so much in the gym. You can't train at a super high intensity for a high volume workout. And if you say you are, you're not. I'm sorry. That's just what it is. And I don't understand why people want to argue with me about it. I get super fired up. But it's just what it is. So what I'm doing for this week and next week, this is right after the show. And I'm doing this because I'm giving my body a break from pushing high intensity and the heavier weights at a low volume. And trying to get my weight stabilized, which today and yesterday is like the first time my stomach has felt normal, because I lost 7 pounds from Wednesday to Saturday, and I've just been on a nonstop, I was always thirsty, so I'm just drinking, and then it's like blowing out my stomach. I wasn't eating super bad. I ate, what a normal person would eat, a day after a show. I think I had some burgers, I had a couple donuts, a milkshake. I ate almost a whole pack of Oreos. Went out to breakfast. And then, once I started flying back to Ohio, I had 3 chicken and rice meals. eggs for breakfast with English muffin. Like I just kind of went back to like what I was normally eating, and that's what I've been eating this week too. I've been back on track. But yeah, the training. So this week and next week, low intensity, high volume. And then this is all going to be documented on the website. So if you want to go on the website and check this out, this is going to be great information for you guys to follow along with and what John and I are doing. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to do week 1, week 3, week 5. 2 workouts a week. Sounds crazy, but this is what it is. Upper body day, probably Monday. Lower body day, Thursday. Cardio every single day to build that aerobic base, zone 1 to zone 2 for 30 to 40 minutes every single day. I haven't stopped cardio. I've done cardio every single day since I've been back. Week 2, week 4, week 6, 3 workouts a week. Chest and back, legs, shoulders, arms. That's what I'm going to be doing. And I'm going to push my food high during those 6 weeks period, push supplements high those 6 weeks. Then we're going to scale it back. We're going to pull back the supplements. We're going to increase the volume, lower the intensity of the training for 2 weeks. Pull back the food slightly, because think about in the off season, if you're a bodybuilder, you're watching this, you understand what I'm talking about. You constantly push food to the max all the time, right? Remember I said about accommodation, right? So the foods is going to be the same way, just like the supplements. You can't push forever. So during those weeks, slightly pull back on your food a little bit. Give your digestion a little bit of break. You see what I'm saying? Same thing with the supplements. Give your body a break a little bit. And then, after that whole 8-week little cycle there, 6 weeks push, 2-week pull back, repeat. Do the same thing again. And all this is going to be tracked on the website. It'll say like Seth Shaw 2020-2021 off season. And it's going to have all my supplements on there, what I'm eating, in all the workouts, what I'm doing. So if you guys are interested in that, check that out. We still have the upper extremity hypertrophy program on there. We've got a couple people that signed up for that. I really hope they're liking it, because John put a lot of detail into all of that. Our member site and exercise library is still growing every single day, so I appreciate that. We have a couple more questions in the Q&A. John and I are going to do a video on that for you guys. So if you guys want to get on there and add a couple more questions, get in there and add some questions. I am going to do another YouTube video with the question I just got from IG for today. I got a handful of those, so I'll do a video on that. And that's it. So follow along this off season, because I'm really excited about it. It's going to be a lot different than what I did before. I'm going to be more meticulous with my food and my training, and I'm not going to be pricking around like I have been before. Bodybuilding is it's a time sport, so you can't really do it forever. You know what I mean? Like, you only have a certain amount of time to really push things to get to where you need to be, unless you're Dexter Jackson, and those are genetic outliers, so we just throw those out. Those don't count. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm just really going to try to hone in on the time that I have to try to be my best. And I was really happy with the physique that I had at the Tampa Pro. I was just flat, like I mentioned in my last video, but it is what it is. I know that I should just keep my water higher that last week and not do 6 ounces of water per meal on Friday. It was really, really low. I think that if I just kept my water high and did everything else the same, I think I would have looked a lot fuller. But I like the way that I look. I got tons of messages. I probably got at least 100 messages from Friday to Sunday, Monday about how I looked. So I know that I'm not crazy. I feel like I looked really good. So yeah, tune in next time. Follow along to prep, guys. I know this video is like hella long, but I just got a lot of things in my mind I have to talk about and like spread the word to try to help people with what training is, and not just doing exercises, and focus on training, the muscle that they're supposed to be working on. And I get really excited about it, and I like to talk about it. So if you guys got questions, just put them below or email me. If you guys are interested in coaching, go on the website, check it out. I'll put the links below in the video for the questionnaire and all that stuff. So stay tuned. Thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe and like this video.